And then move into this. So this is a good brood comb still. It's got some heater bees in it. It's got a little bit of food in it. And it's got some uncapped larvae, so they couldn't get these bees to live long enough. Might have been a cold spell or might have been something, but they didn't make it. There's even one here that was trying to emerge, it looks like. That one's trying to get out, died. These ones here, they're just going to have to pull them out themselves. Here's another one that was just emerging. So it must have been a flash cold around Thanksgiving when we had that super cold spell. So here's another thing that we do. Today might not be the best day to do it because it's still a little wet. But if you have these bees, these heater bees, and they're inside and they're head first going down, we want to get them out. And so one way you can do it is to tap lightly, and you see how they all popped out? You got to tap really lightly on the side. So this bee tapping, you hold the comb with one hand and lightly tap with the other. If you tap too hard, it's just going to crack right along here. So you tap lightly. If you tap enough, you'll start to drop them out. You'll see a few of them are falling out, but it's not even necessary. If you can get them out this far, then there's a great exercise for you finger-style guitarists so that you can put your hand here and just start to pluck them out. And you just start pulling the bees out. It's a little messy, especially now because they're wet. But if you get them early like this and clean them out, this is all the bee colony is going to have to do this anyways. So you're saving them a ton of work by pulling these bodies out. The undertakers are going to want to drag them all the way out and away from the hive. You spend a little bit of time pulling these out, and then you've got a baby comb just waiting for a new queen and colony to come in and start laying. Now, one of the things that you can do with the plucking is the bees' wings, as opposed to grabbing their butts and having them eviscerate or poop all over you or shed their guts all over you, you can grab by the tips of their wings, where they're very strongly attached into their bodies, and you can pull them out by their wing tips. Nice and easy, a lot easier than pulling it out by the abdomen, which then makes a mess of your fingers. So if you look, we cleaned out that whole area in just a minute or three, and this part here they're going to have to pluck out anyways, so you'll let them deal with that, but you've just saved them a ton of work. And this comb is in terrific shape, ready for the next colony to go in. So that one will flip upside down. Honey again. Honey into here. Pretty clean. So this stuff's all perfect to have for the bees to start. They'll have food already, they'll have bedrooms already, everything's set to go. So I want to save that stuff, it's good. Then we start getting into this and see how it's getting wide again. So this was the end of the brood chamber when it was just switching from brood into food. So if you look sideways at it, you can see how they pulled it really wide. So this is kind of an iffy one as to whether or not we want to keep it or whether we want to harvest it. Just because if we stick this in the middle, they're going to have to cut it clean or work a little bit on it to get it to go right. So I'll save it for now just because we don't know what's going on. And again, I'll take some of these bees and pull them out. And again, if we look close, their butt's really stuck in pretty far. So I need to tap to see if I can get it to go out. The trick tapping now is that this stuff's heavy. So if I tap too hard, it'll bust right off. So I gotta tap as lightly as I can. There, you see some of them came out. And all I got to do is get enough to get a wing tip. Now we're into where the comb has started to arc back around. So this comb is no good. So we'll harvest this stuff again. So starting back here, and then in another video we'll show you how we clean this stuff up. We don't need to do that today. So here we've got another comb that's off, that if we would have caught this thing, we could have zip tie fixed it, pushed it back, and kept it straight. But since we didn't do it, we've got to just harvest. But it's got honey all the way up into here, so this one's another one that we'll want to put into the containers or harvest later. So then the last thing we'll do is grab the dead bees out and just get rid of those. More wax just to render. And so with all that wax, we might have enough to be able to make a couple of 2-3 salves. And we'll show you the rendering process in another video. But we'll take this stuff now and just start digging out. It's no fun digging out the dead bees. And now you dig out the dead bees regardless if the hive's alive or if the hive's dead. They'll have dead bees, and it'll be their job to have to drag all these bees out if it was a feral colony. So we want to help them to have less work so that they can spend their time foraging and building a new family, not dragging out the dead from the plague, from the winter's wrath. The last thing we can do here is we start to clean up. So if you look closer here, you can see one of the reasons why I was thinking that they used this side. If you see this stuff here, that's all bee poop. So the bees were trying to get out and they couldn't, so they were trying to find their way out through the roof. And so some of them just like sat at the door and went, I can't hold it anymore, and so they started pooping. And that stuff you'll want to clean with a wet rag, come a little bit more like spring. And then we'll go through and we'll clean up the bars. And we just run through and do a quick clean like that and get that wax off. But all of this stuff is all money. That's all propolis. That's all very good propolis. So we want to save that in a separate container. Now propolis, you can tell, is different than wax. Dark in color, almost reddish in color. And in the summertime, this stuff is like glue. It's like caulk. It's real sticky. But once it gets down to 40 degrees, this stuff turns into rock. Here's a bunch here. They use it to seal up everything. So you can see the color and the shininess of it. And if I heat this up, it'll turn back into a resin again. And if I freeze it and powderize it, I can render it into either a tincture with alcohol or a salve with oil. And so that's a whole different thing that we'll talk about. But this is the stuff we kind of like in the hive, is rendering off as much of that propolis as possible. So if you go through and clean the whole hive up, you'll end up with bars all cleaned off and ready to go. You'll end up with all that wax ready to be able to render. You'll end up with some extra honey for your cameraman and his lady. You'll end up with extra honey and food for the bees in another hive or to return back. And you'll end up with bedrooms for the new colony. And so you're ready to rock and roll.